I'm Margaret Sullivan, 68 years old, and I never imagined my own daughter would abandon me at a bus station as Hurricane Eleanor bore down on our Florida town. The shock of watching their car speed away with my luggage still in the trunk paralyzed me. As rain pelted my face and wind whipped my coat, something inside me hardened. They'd controlled my life since Harold died, but no more. With trembling fingers, I called Raymond, my attorney. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from today? Hit that subscribe button and join me for what happened when the hurricane that abandoned me hit their bank accounts instead. Harold and I spent 45 years building a comfortable life together. We weren't wealthy by any means, but we were smart with our money. I worked as a financial advisor at the same firm for 32 years, while Harold managed a successful hardware store. We saved diligently, invested wisely, and by the time Harold passed away from heart failure 5 years ago, we had amassed a respectable nest egg. After Harold's death, our daughter Audrey suddenly became very interested in my financial affairs. She and her husband Frank would visit every Sunday, initially to check on me, but conversations inevitably turned to money. "Mom, you're all alone in this big house," Audrey would say, her voice dripping with artificial concern. "Frank and I were thinking you should add our names to your accounts, just in case something happens." I resisted at first. My instincts as a financial advisor screamed caution, but grief had left me vulnerable. Gradually, I began giving in to small requests. When Audrey mentioned they needed a new roof, I offered to help. When their son Tyler got accepted to college, I paid his tuition. These weren't gifts they appreciated. They were expectations they felt entitled to. "Grandma, you're not using that money anyway," Tyler once said when I hesitated about buying him a car for his 19th birthday. His words stung, but I chalked it up to youthful inconsideration. The warning signs were there, but I ignored them. At family gatherings, I noticed how they spoke about me when they thought I couldn't hear. "Mom's getting forgetful," Audrey would tell relatives, though my mind was sharp as ever. Frank would joke about waiting for the inheritance with his friends, not realizing I was within earshot. My sister Julia, who lived in Atlanta, warned me. "Maggie, they're taking advantage," she said during one of our weekly phone calls. "You need to protect yourself." "They're family," I defended, though doubt had already taken root. Last September, Hurricane Eleanor formed in the Atlantic. Meteorologists tracked its path toward the Florida coast, warning it could be the strongest storm to hit our area in decades. I followed the news carefully, preparing emergency supplies and securing my home as best I could. At our Sunday dinner, I expressed my concerns. "This storm looks serious. We should discuss evacuation plans." Frank waved dismissively, his mouth full of the roast I'd spent hours preparing. "These weathermen always exaggerate. Remember last year's catastrophic hurricane that turned out to be nothing but rain?" "Better safe than sorry," I countered. "The forecasts show Eleanor strengthening to Category 4 before landfall." Audrey exchanged a look with Frank that made me uneasy. "Mom, you always worry too much. But if it makes you feel better, we can discuss it next weekend." By Wednesday, voluntary evacuation orders had been issued for our county. I called Audrey immediately. "The highways will be jammed if we wait until the last minute," I said. "We've been thinking," Audrey replied after an uncomfortable pause. "Tyler has a big exam on Friday he can't miss. We'll leave Saturday morning first thing." Saturday morning would be cutting it dangerously close, but I didn't argue. That night, I checked my emergency kit and gathered important documents, insurance policies, property deeds, and financial records, into a waterproof container. Something told me I might need them. The Weather Channel showed Hurricane Eleanor intensifying, now predicted to make landfall just 20 miles from our town. As I watched the swirling mass approach on the radar, a sense of foreboding settled over me that had nothing to do with the storm. By Friday afternoon, Hurricane Eleanor had strengthened to Category 4, and mandatory evacuation orders were issued for our county. The sky had turned an eerie yellowish gray, and the air felt heavy with impending disaster. I called Audrey immediately. "We need to leave now," I said, trying to keep the panic from my voice. "The evacuation routes will be gridlocked soon." "We're packing right now," Audrey assured me. "Frank's getting the car ready. We'll swing by in about an hour to pick you up." I hurried to finish my preparations, double-checking that my medications, documents, and emergency cash were secure in my carry bag. I packed light, just 2 changes of clothes and essential toiletries in a small suitcase. The rest of my belongings I secured as best I could, covering electronics with plastic and moving photo albums to higher shelves in case of flooding. The wind had picked up considerably by the time Audrey's SUV pulled into my driveway. Frank honked impatiently instead of coming to the door. When I stepped outside, struggling against the gusting wind, I saw their vehicle was packed to the brim. "Sorry about the rush, Mom," Audrey said as Frank loaded my small suitcase into the trunk. "We need to get on the road." I climbed into the back seat beside Tyler, who didn't look up from his phone to greet me. The car was uncomfortably silent as Frank navigated through neighborhoods where people were boarding windows and loading vehicles. "We've been talking," Audrey finally said, turning around from the passenger seat. "We think the best plan is for you to take the bus to Atlanta. Julia can pick you up at the station." I was stunned. "The bus? But I thought we were all going to the hotel in Birmingham you booked." Frank cleared his throat. "The thing is, Margaret, the hotel only had 1 room available. With all 5 of us, it would be too crowded." 5? I counted mentally. Audrey, Frank, Tyler, and me. That made 4. "Ashley's coming with us," Tyler mumbled, referring to his girlfriend. "She couldn't get a flight out." "I see," I said quietly, my heart sinking. I was being displaced for a girl Tyler had been dating for all of 3 months. "Julia's expecting you," Audrey continued smoothly. "We already called her. The buses are still running to Atlanta, and you'll be safer there than in some crowded shelter." I wanted to protest, to remind them that at 68, I shouldn't be navigating a crowded bus station during an evacuation, but the determined set of Frank's jaw told me the decision had been made without me. As we approached the bus terminal, I noticed the increasingly dark sky and strengthening winds. Palm trees bent at alarming angles, and debris skittered across the road. My stomach knotted with anxiety. "Are you sure the buses are still running in this weather?" I asked. "They announced extended service for evacuees," Frank said confidently, pulling up to the curb. "Your bus leaves in an hour." Audrey helped me out of the car while Frank popped the trunk. He handed me my carry bag but made no move to retrieve my suitcase. "What about my other bag?" I asked. Audrey and Frank exchanged a glance. "There's hardly any room in there," Frank said. "We'll keep it safe and give it to you when we all meet up after the hurricane." Before I could argue, Audrey gave me a quick, stiff hug. "We've got to go, Mom. The traffic's getting worse by the minute. Call us when you reach Julia's." "Let me at least say goodbye to Tyler," I said, but Frank was already closing my door. "He's sleeping," Audrey lied, though I'd clearly seen him scrolling through his phone. "Love you, Mom. Stay safe." The SUV pulled away from the curb with alarming speed, leaving me standing alone outside the bus terminal as the first heavy raindrops began to fall. Something about their hasty departure felt wrong, but I pushed the thought aside. They were probably just anxious about the storm. Inside the terminal, the scene was chaotic. Travelers crowded the counters, many arguing with overwhelmed staff. I joined the longest line, assumed it was for Atlanta, and waited my turn. After 20 minutes, I reached the counter. "1 ticket to Atlanta, please," I said, opening my purse. The agent gave me an apologetic look. "I'm sorry, Mom. The last bus to Atlanta left 30 minutes ago. We're only running service to Orlando for the next hour. Then we're shutting down completely." My blood ran cold. But my family said there were extended evacuation services to Atlanta. The agent shook her head. "No, ma'am. In fact, we've been canceling routes since this morning. The governor's office advised all bus services to cease operations by 5 o'clock due to dangerous conditions." I checked my watch. It was 4:15. Stepping away from the counter, I fumbled for my phone with shaking hands and dialed Audrey's number. It went straight to voicemail. Same with Frank's and Tyler's. I sent text messages to all 3. "Bus to Atlanta already left. Terminal closing soon. Please come back." No response. Through the terminal's large windows, I watched the storm intensify. The rain now fell in blinding sheets, and signs swayed dangerously in the wind. With each passing minute, the knot in my stomach tightened. This wasn't a miscommunication or a mistake. They had left me here on purpose. The last call for the Orlando bus came and went. I remained seated in the terminal, repeatedly trying my family's phones. Each call went straight to voicemail, each text message undelivered. Outside, Hurricane Eleanor announced her arrival with howling winds that made the large windows creak ominously. "Mom!" A security guard approached, concern evident on his face. "Terminal's closing in 10 minutes. You can't stay here." "My family," I began, my voice cracking. "They were supposed to come back for me." His expression softened with pity. "Emergency shelters are full now, but I can call someone to help you get to the hospital. They're taking overflow evacuees." The thought of spending the hurricane in a crowded hospital corridor filled me with dread. "Is there anywhere else? A hotel nearby, perhaps?" He hesitated. "There's the Palmetto Inn across the street. Most folks evacuated, but Martha, who runs it, might still be there. She's stubborn about leaving during storms." I thanked him and gathered my things. By now, only a handful of employees remained in the terminal, hurrying through closing procedures. As I stepped outside under the awning, the force of the wind nearly knocked me off my feet. Rain pelted sideways, soaking my pants despite the overhead cover. The Palmetto Inn sign flickered in the gloom, just visible across the 4-lane road. Getting there meant exposing myself to the full fury of Eleanor's outer bands. Taking a deep breath, I clutched my carry bag to my chest and stepped into the storm. The journey of less than 200 feet became an epic struggle. Twice I nearly lost my footing on the flooded sidewalk. By the time I reached the motel's office, I was drenched to the skin and gasping for breath. I pounded on the door, praying someone would answer. After an agonizing minute, it cracked open, revealing a stout woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair. "Lord Almighty, get in here before you blow away," she exclaimed, pulling me inside with surprising strength. The office was dimly lit by battery-powered lanterns. "Power's already out in this part of town," the woman explained, introducing herself as Barbara. "You're lucky I saw you coming. What in heaven's name are you doing out in this weather?" Through chattering teeth, I explained my situation. Barbara's expression darkened as I recounted how my family had driven away. "Those no good," she muttered, trailing off. "Well, you're not the first and won't be the last. 2 years ago during Hurricane Daniel, my son-in-law convinced my daughter I'd be staying with my sister. Told her I'd already left. Meanwhile, he told me they'd come get me later. Neither was true. He just wanted to grab her inheritance early." She showed me to a room on the 2nd floor, away from windows. "Water might come in downstairs, but this floor should stay dry unless things get really bad." In the sparse room, I sat on the edge of the bed, still shivering despite the towels Barbara had provided. My mind raced with questions. Had they planned this all along? Was this why they'd been so insistent on handling the evacuation arrangements? I tried calling Julia in Atlanta, but the cell service had deteriorated to the point where calls wouldn't connect. I managed to send one text: "Stranded at Palmetto Inn near bus station. Family left. Storm hitting now." As the evening progressed, the hurricane's full might descended upon us. The building shuddered with each powerful gust. Through a small window, I caught glimpses of palm trees bent double and debris flying through the air. The roar was like nothing I'd ever heard. A freight train circling endlessly around the building. During a brief lull, I checked my phone again. Still no messages from Audrey or Frank, but I noticed I had enough signal to access my email. Perhaps there was some explanation there, some miscommunication that would make sense of this nightmare. What I found instead shattered any remaining illusions. There, in my inbox, was a notification from my credit card company. "Thank you for your purchase at Cancun Grand Resort and Spa." I stared at the screen in disbelief. Cancun? They weren't going to Birmingham or anywhere near the hurricane's path. They had fled to Mexico and used my credit card to pay for it. With trembling fingers, I opened Facebook. Though I rarely use social media, I knew Audrey and Tyler were constantly posting. Sure enough, Tyler had updated his status 5 hours earlier. "Hurricane escape plan upgraded. Cancun, here we come. Sorry ATL, maybe next time." There was even a photo: Audrey, Frank, Tyler, and his girlfriend Ashley, smiling broadly at an airport gate. The timestamp showed it had been posted just 30 minutes after they dropped me at the bus station. I sank to the floor, phone clutched in my hand, as the full weight of their betrayal crashed over me. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a last-minute change of plans. They had orchestrated this entire scenario, deliberately abandoning me to face a Category 4 hurricane alone, while they escaped to a luxury resort. Using my money. Through the window, I watched as a section of roof from a nearby building tore away and disappeared into the night. Inside me, something tore away as well. Any remaining faith in my daughter's love. Barbara knocked softly and entered with a candle and some crackers. Finding me on the floor, she helped me to the bed without asking questions. She simply sat beside me, her weathered hand covering mine. Family can hurt you worse than any hurricane, she said softly. But you know what? After the storm passes, you rebuild stronger. As Hurricane Eleanor raged outside, I lay awake planning exactly how I would rebuild, and what I would tear down first. Dawn broke with an eerie stillness. The hurricanes I had passed in the night, bringing a temporary respite from the chaos. Barbara and I ventured cautiously to the motel office, where a battery-powered radio crackled with emergency broadcasts. Remain indoors until authorities declare it safe. Hurricane Eleanor's western eyewall now moving through Palm Beach County with sustained winds of 130 miles per hour. The second half of the storm would hit soon, but this brief calm allowed me to think clearly for the first time since being abandoned. Barbara, do you have internet access? I asked. She nodded toward a corner desk. Generators powering the router. Signal's spotty but it works. You thinking of checking on your folks? Something like that, I replied. I wasn't concerned about their safety. The Facebook posts had continued through the night, showing margaritas by a pool while I huddled in darkness. No, I had different business to attend to. At the computer, I logged into my banking portal. What I saw confirmed my worst suspicions. A series of large withdrawals had been made over the past 48 hours. $12,000 transferred from my savings to Audrey's account. $3,500 charged to my credit card for airline tickets. $5,200 for the Cancun resort. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't a spontaneous trip. It was a calculated plan. They had probably been planning this for weeks, waiting for an opportunity like the hurricane to implement it. The evacuation provided perfect cover to abandon me, while simultaneously gaining access to my accounts. I thought back to Harold's funeral 5 years ago. In my grief-stricken state, I had allowed Audrey to help with financial matters. We had set up joint accounts just in case something happened. Accounts that she and Frank were now draining. But they had made one critical mistake. As a former financial advisor, I had insisted on remaining the primary account holder with special provisions. Provisions they apparently hadn't bothered to read. Barbara returned with a cup of lukewarm coffee. You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse, I replied. I've seen the truth. I explained the situation, showing her the unauthorized transactions. Barbara's expression hardened with each detail. My Raymond might be able to help, she said, pulling out a satellite phone. My ex was garbage, but his brother's a good man. Best attorney in 3 counties. Raymond Hartzell's voice was clear despite the approaching storm bands. Barbara explained my situation briefly before handing me the phone. Mrs. Sullivan, this is unconscionable, he said after I filled in the details. As your family's using your accounts without permission during an emergency, we have grounds for immediate action. What can we do? I asked. Florida has strong elder protection laws. I can file for emergency injunctive relief to freeze all connected accounts. Do you have documentation showing you're the primary account holder? I did better than that. Opening my waterproof document case, I found copies of all account agreements, power of attorney documents, and the joint account terms, all specifying my rights to revoke access. Perfect, Raymond said when I described the documents. Now, I need you to document the abandonment. Write down exactly what happened with times and dates. If you have any communications proving they left you deliberately, that strengthens our case. The wind outside was picking up again as Eleanor's second half approached. Barbara helped me photograph the documents using her satellite phone, sending them directly to Raymond. I'll file for emergency freezing of all accounts immediately, Raymond assured me. Given the circumstances, we should have action within hours. Barbara squeezed my hand as I hung up. How do you feel? For the first time since being left at the bus station, I smiled. Like I'm finally taking back control. As the hurricane's fury returned, we retreated to the upper floor. Barbara shared stories of how she had rebuilt her life after her own family's betrayal, giving me strength for what lay ahead. By evening, Raymond called back. Good news, Mrs. Sullivan. Judge Winters granted the emergency order. All connected accounts are frozen, effective immediately. Credit cards, checking accounts, everything. I pictured my family at their resort. Cards suddenly declined, confusion turning to panic as they realized what had happened. What's next? I asked. Document everything. Every unauthorized transaction, every communication. We're building a case not just for financial recovery, but potentially for elder abuse charges. Barbara nodded approvingly as I hung up. The hurricane hitting their bank account now, is it? It certainly is, I replied, a sense of justice warming me despite the power outage. The first call from Audrey came 20 minutes later. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was frantic. Mom, something's wrong with the cards. Call me right away. 3 more calls followed in quick succession. I listened to each message, noting how Audrey's tone evolved from confusion to anger to poorly concealed panic. The 4th call I answered. Mom. Audrey's voice was breathless with relief. Thank God. Our cards are being declined and the hotel is threatening to make us leave. I think there's been some kind of fraud on your accounts. There has been, I replied calmly. But it's being handled. A beat of silence. What do you mean? Mom, we need money for the hotel. We're stranded here. Stranded. I repeated. That must be frightening. Almost as frightening as being abandoned at a bus station during a Category 4 hurricane. Another silence, longer this time. When Audrey spoke again, her voice had changed completely. Mom, there's been a misunderstanding. We thought the bus was still running to Atlanta. Like you thought you were going to Birmingham, not Cancun? Frank's voice suddenly came on the line. Now listen here, Margaret. This is ridiculous. You need to unfreeze these accounts immediately. I'm afraid I can't do that, Frank. My attorney advises me that unauthorized use of an elder's accounts during an emergency evacuation raises serious legal concerns. The freeze will remain in place pending investigation. His response was a stream of threats and obscenities that I listened to calmly before interrupting. I have documented evidence of abandonment, unauthorized transactions, and now verbal abuse. Would you like to continue adding to the record? The line went quiet except for Frank's heavy breathing. I'll speak with my attorney after the hurricane passes, I said evenly. In the meantime, perhaps you can explain to the resort management why you use fraudulent means to secure your accommodations. I ended the call as the building shuddered under Eleanor's renewed assault. Despite the danger outside, I felt safer than I had in years. The storm had stripped away pretenses, revealing the truth about my family and about my own strength. In the darkness of that hurricane-battered motel room, I made a promise to myself. When this storm passed, both the meteorological one and the emotional one, I would rebuild my life on my own terms. The morning after Hurricane Eleanor finally moved inland, Barbara and I emerged to assess the damage. The Palmetto Inn had weathered the storm remarkably well. Some roof damage and broken windows, but the structure remained sound. The surrounding area hadn't been as fortunate. Downed power lines, uprooted trees, and debris from shattered buildings littered the streets. Barbara immediately transformed her motel into an impromptu community center. Got a generator and clean water, she explained as she set up a charging station for phones and distributed bottles from her stockpile. Folks need somewhere to gather. I pitched in, grateful for the distraction from my family situation. By midday, 24 locals had congregated in the motel lobby, sharing resources and information. I found myself organizing a whiteboard with essential contacts, FEMA numbers, insurance hotlines, and locations of emergency services. You're good at this, observed a silver-haired man named George as I updated the board with newly reported road closures. 32 years as a financial advisor, I explained. Organization becomes second nature. We could use your help at the senior center, he said. Lot of folks there don't understand the assistance paperwork. Before I could respond, my phone vibrated with a text from Raymond. Judge approved extended freeze on all accounts. Family members can withdraw $100 daily for essentials only until hearing next week. Call when you can. I stepped outside to call him back. The air was thick with humidity and the scent of wet debris. You've built a solid case, Raymond said after explaining the legal details. The judge was particularly concerned about the abandonment aspect during a natural disaster. What happens next? I asked. We have a hearing scheduled for next Wednesday. Until then, the temporary order remains in effect. Are you safe where you are? I assured him I was fine and thanked him for his swift action. As I ended the call, another came through, Audrey. This time her voice lacked the panic or anger of previous calls. Instead, she sounded calculated, controlled. Mom, we need to talk about this rationally, she began. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. I agree, I replied. I misunderstood the nature of our relationship for years. She sighed dramatically. The bus station was Frank's idea. I wanted to take you with us, but he said the trip would be too stressful for someone your age. To Cancun? Using my credit card without permission. I kept my voice level. Interesting that you mentioned stress, Audrey. Do you know what's stressful? Watching the windows of a motel flex during hurricane-force winds, wondering if this is how you'll die. Abandoned by your only child. Mom, please.
No, Audrey.
I'm not interested in explanations. The court will sort this out next week. Court. Her voice rose an octave. You're taking us to court? Your own family. Family doesn't leave family at a bus station during a hurricane. The words came out stronger than I expected. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't lie. We didn't steal anything. Those are joint accounts, which you access fraudulently while abandoning a senior citizen during an emergency evacuation. My attorney says that's a felony in Florida. The line went silent for several seconds. Tyler had nothing to do with this, she finally said, her voice smaller. Please don't punish him. Tyler posted pictures from the airport 30 minutes after you left me. He was fully complicit. The memory still stung sharply. He's an adult who made his choices. After I hung up, I leaned against the damaged stucco wall of the motel, breathing deeply. Standing up to Audrey left me shaking but strangely exhilarated. Inside, Barbara handed me a bottle of water. Family call. I nodded. Let me guess. Suddenly they're sorry and it's all a big misunderstanding? Exactly that, I confirmed. Barbara snorted. Amazing how freezing the money brings clarity. My ex tried the same routine after I caught him emptying our accounts. Suddenly he was sorry and needed another chance. Did you give him one? Her laugh was answer enough. Throughout the day, I received increasingly desperate texts from each family member. Frank's were threatening, Audrey's manipulative, and Tyler's, perhaps most painfully, coldly transactional. Grandma, I know Mom and Dad messed up, but why are you punishing me too? I need my tuition payment for next semester. I showed Barbara the message. The boy's father's son, isn't he? She remarked. Not a word about your safety, just his money. That evening, as volunteers distributed sandwiches provided by a local church, Raymond called again. Your grandson Tyler tried to contact me, he said. Claimed he had no knowledge of the abandonment plan and should have separate access to his education fund. What did you tell him? That all accounts remain frozen pending the hearing, but that he's welcome to attend and make his case personally. I smiled grimly. He won't show. Tyler doesn't do uncomfortable confrontations. After helping clean up, I sat with Barbara on the motel's less damaged rear patio. The sunset painted the storm-ravaged landscape in incongruously beautiful colors. What will you do after the hearing? Barbara asked. I had been pondering this question since the first night of the storm. I'm not sure yet. I can't go back to how things were. You could stay around here, she suggested. We've got a nice senior community just outside town. And I could use help running this place. Considering a renovation after the insurance comes through. The offer was tempting. Starting fresh in a community that had already shown such kindness had appeal. My phone buzzed with another call, Tyler this time. Unlike his parents, he hadn't called multiple times, which made me curious enough to answer. Grandma. His voice sounded younger than his 20 years. Are you okay? After the hurricane, I mean, I survived, I replied, not elaborating. Look, I know you're mad and you should be. But I need to explain something. He paused. I didn't know they were leaving you at the bus station. They told me you had decided to stay with a friend locally. You were in the car, Tyler, I reminded him. You saw me get out at the terminal. I was sleeping for real. I had taken motion sickness pills because the evacuation traffic makes me nauseous. I didn't wake up until we were at the airport. Mom said you had changed your mind about coming. His story was plausible, but years of manipulation had made me wary. And the Facebook post, Hurricane Escape Plan upgraded? He was quiet for a moment. That was wrong. I was excited about Cancun and didn't think. When I found out what really happened after the resort Wi-Fi connected, I should have done something. Yes, you should have.
I'm sorry, Grandma.
Really sorry. Whether his remorse was genuine or financially motivated remained to be seen, but it was the only apology any of them had offered. The hearing is next Wednesday, I told him. If you want to make things right, start by being honest there. After we hung up, I gazed at the starry sky emerging from behind dissipating clouds. The hurricane had passed, leaving destruction in its wake, but also clarity. Sometimes it takes a storm to reveal what's been broken all along. The week following Hurricane Eleanor brought both devastation and unexpected community. While power remained out in much of the county, the Palmetto Inn became a hub of recovery activity thanks to Barbara's generator and indomitable spirit. I found myself stepping naturally into an organizational role, coordinating volunteer efforts, and helping shell-shocked residents navigate the bureaucratic maze of disaster assistance. Mrs. Sullivan, do you have a minute? A young FEMA representative approached me on the third day post-hurricane. Your system for processing claims is incredibly efficient. Mind if I implement it at our other sites? I had created a simple color-coded system to prioritize cases and track their progress through various agencies. Of course, I told him. Anything that helps people get assistance faster. My newfound purpose kept me distracted from dwelling on my family situation, though Raymond called daily with updates. The temporary account freeze remained in place, with Audrey and Frank growing increasingly desperate as their resort stay extended beyond their means. They've been downgraded from their luxury suite to a standard room, Raymond reported, not bothering to hide his satisfaction. The hotel manager is requiring daily cash payments since their cards were declined. I tried not to feel vindicated by their predicament, but after what they'd put me through, a small part of me couldn't help but appreciate the justice. On the fifth day, as I was helping an elderly couple complete insurance forms, a familiar voice called my name. I turned to find my sister Julia rushing toward me, arms outstretched. Maggie, she embraced me tightly. Thank God you're all right. I've been trying to get here since I got your text. Seeing my sister, my real family, brought tears I hadn't allowed myself during the entire ordeal. Julia had driven from Atlanta as soon as the roads cleared, bringing supplies and, more importantly, unconditional support. Audrey called me, she revealed as we sat in Barbara's makeshift cafe. Tried to convince me you were having some kind of breakdown, freezing accounts for no reason. Said I needed to talk sense into you. I tensed. And what did you tell her? Julia's eyes flashed. I told her that abandoning her mother during a hurricane wasn't just unforgivable. It was criminal. Then I hung up and started packing my car. With Julia's arrival came practical considerations about my future. My house had sustained significant damage. A tree through the sunroom and water damage throughout the first floor. While insurance would cover repairs, I wasn't sure I wanted to return. You could come to Atlanta, Julia offered. My guest room is yours as long as you need. It was tempting, but something held me back. This community that had embraced me during the crisis felt more like home now than the house I'd shared with Harold for decades. The day before the hearing, Raymond invited me to his office to prepare. The building had minimal hurricane damage, though like most of the area, it was running on generator power. We have an extremely strong case, he assured me, reviewing the documentation. The evidence of financial exploitation is clear-cut. What we need to discuss is what you want as an outcome. I considered carefully. I want financial independence and protection. I want to ensure they can never access my accounts again. That's certainly achievable, Raymond nodded. What about pressing criminal charges? The abandonment during a mandatory evacuation could constitute elder abuse under Florida law. The question gave me pause. Despite everything, the thought of Audrey with a criminal record troubled me. She was still my daughter, even if her actions had shattered our relationship. Let's focus on the financial separation for now, I decided. I reserve the right to pursue criminal charges later if necessary. Raymond respected my decision. There's one more thing, he added, pulling out another folder. I took the liberty of drafting new estate planning documents for your consideration. The current ones, which name Audrey as your primary beneficiary and executor, are problematic given recent events. I spent that evening reviewing the documents, making adjustments with a clearer head than I'd had in years. By morning, I had a new will, power of attorney and healthcare directive that reflected my true wishes rather than family expectations. The courtroom the next day was smaller than I'd imagined, occupying a temporary space in a community center, since the courthouse had sustained significant damage. Judge Winters, a stern-faced woman in her 50s, presided from behind a folding table elevated on a platform. Audrey and Frank arrived looking distinctly less polished than usual, the strain of their situation evident in their haggard appearances. Tyler was notably absent, as I'd predicted. The proceedings moved quickly. Raymond presented our evidence methodically, the bank records showing unauthorized transfers, documentation of my abandonment during a mandatory evacuation, and timestamps proving they were posting vacation photos while I sheltered from the hurricane they'd left me to face alone. Frank and Audrey's attorney attempted to paint the situation as a series of unfortunate misunderstandings, but his arguments faltered under Judge Winters' skeptical gaze. So you're claiming, the judge interrupted, that leaving Mrs. Sullivan at a bus station known to be closing, with buses no longer running to the destination you allegedly arranged, while you fled to an international resort using her credit card, was all a miscommunication? Their attorney cleared his throat uncomfortably. Your Honor, my clients made errors in judgment during a stressful evacuation situation. Judge Winters cut him off. Counselor, I've seen regrettable family behavior in this courtroom for 20 years, but rarely something this calculated. Her ruling came swiftly. All joint accounts would be permanently separated, with assets distributed based on contribution evidence. Audrey and Frank were prohibited from serving in any financial capacity for me, and all previous powers of attorney were revoked. Mrs. Sullivan, Judge Winters addressed me directly. The court finds clear evidence of potential elder exploitation. Should you wish to pursue criminal charges, this ruling would support such action. I nodded but made no commitment. As we left the courtroom, Audrey approached me, tears streaming down her face. Mom, please, she begged. We can fix this. We made a terrible mistake. Looking at my daughter, this person I'd loved unconditionally for 45 years. I felt a complicated mix of grief, anger, and ultimately resolve. Some mistakes can't be fixed, Audrey, I told her quietly. Some actions reveal truths we can't unsee. So that's it? 45 years of family just over? I thought carefully before answering. Family isn't over, but it's forever changed. If there's ever to be any relationship between us again, it will have to be built on new terms, honesty, respect, and genuine care, not financial dependence. Frank tried to interject, but Audrey silenced him with a gesture. Something in her expression suggested she finally understood the magnitude of what they'd done. 2 weeks later, with Raymond's help, I closed on a small condominium in a senior community just 10 minutes from Barbara's motel. Julia stayed to help me settle in, bringing personal items salvaged from my hurricane-damaged house. As we arranged family photos in my new living room, Julia held up one of Audrey and Tyler from happier times. Where do you want this one? I considered it thoughtfully. On the shelf. They're still family, even if our relationship has fundamentally changed. That evening we joined Barbara for dinner at her motel, now partially renovated and reopened for business. She raised her glass in a toast. To hurricanes of all kinds, she said with knowing eyes, and the stronger foundations we build after them. 6 months after Hurricane Eleanor tore through both my hometown and my family illusions, spring brought new beginnings. My condominium in Sunset Palms Senior Community had become a true home, decorated simply but warmly with carefully chosen items from my previous life. The hurricane-damaged house had been repaired and sold, closing that chapter permanently. Barbara and I had developed a friendship that felt more authentic than anything I'd known in years. 3 mornings a week, I helped with bookkeeping at her motel, which had reopened with renovations that made it more charming than before. The remaining weekdays I volunteered at the county's Disaster Recovery Center, helping seniors navigate the complexities of insurance claims and assistance programs. You've got a gift for explaining financial matters without talking down to people, George, now the center's coordinator, told me. Ever considered doing workshops? The idea took root, and soon I was conducting weekly financial literacy seminars specifically designed for seniors. The sessions quickly became popular, with attendees particularly interested in how to protect themselves from exploitation by strangers or family members. What you experienced is more common than people realize, Dr. Lynette Carter, a geriatric social worker who sometimes co-presented with me, explained to our group. Financial elder abuse by family members happens across all economic and social backgrounds. Sharing my story publicly had been difficult at first, but the relief on attendees' faces when they realized they weren't alone made it worthwhile. Several confided similar experiences, children or grandchildren who viewed their savings as entitlements, manipulative family members who used emotional blackmail to gain financial control. My relationship with my own family remained complicated. Audrey had made halting attempts at reconciliation, sending cards and occasional texts that ranged from genuinely reflective to thinly veiled attempts to re-establish financial connections. Tyler surprised me by showing up unannounced one Saturday afternoon in April. "Grandma," he said awkwardly, standing at my door with a potted orchid. "I wanted to see your new place." I invited him in, maintaining a cautious openness. As we sat on my small balcony overlooking a carefully landscaped courtyard, he seemed genuinely interested in my new life. "Mom and Dad are having a hard time," he confided. "They had to sell the boat and Mom's car. Dad's talking about a second mortgage." I nodded but offered no financial assistance. This boundary was essential to whatever new relationship might develop. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," Tyler continued, surprising me with his introspection. "About how we all of us treated you after Grandpa died. Like you were just, I don't know, a resource instead of a person." "That's a perceptive observation," I acknowledged. "I'm trying to be better," he said, looking down at his hands. "I got a part-time job to help with tuition. It feels good actually earning my own way." These moments of genuine connection were balanced by continued manipulation attempts from Frank, who still occasionally called with thinly disguised financial schemes disguised as family reconciliation efforts. Frank suggested a family cruise this summer, Audrey mentioned during one of our carefully structured monthly phone calls. To rebuild relationships. He found this great deal if you could just help with the deposits. "Audrey," I interrupted gently but firmly. "We've discussed this. Our relationship can't involve financial entanglements anymore." Raymond had helped me establish crystal-clear boundaries. I had created a modest education trust for Tyler with specific disbursement terms tied to academic performance and financial responsibility demonstrations. Beyond that, my finances remained entirely separate from family access. My new will divided my estate between Tyler's future education, Julia, and several charitable organizations supporting hurricane recovery and elder protection. Audrey and Frank received only token amounts, a decision that brought me no joy but felt necessary given their demonstrated values. In late May, Barbara and I launched our most ambitious project yet, a financial security workshop series specifically addressing vulnerability during natural disasters. When evacuation orders come, seniors are at particular risk, I explained to our first group of attendees. Not just physically but financially. Preparation isn't just about emergency supplies. It's about ensuring your financial resources remain secure when you're most vulnerable. We provided practical guidance. Keeping important financial documents in waterproof containers, maintaining emergency-only credit cards, setting up banking alerts for unusual activities, and establishing trusted contact protocols with financial institutions. Being prepared means never having to choose between safety and security, became our workshop mantra. On the anniversary of Hurricane Eleanor, The local news station interviewed me for a story on community recovery. The reporter, a thoughtful young woman named Melissa, asked what I would tell others facing similar family betrayals. Hurricanes reveal structural weaknesses, I told her, both in buildings and in relationships. The painful truth is that some structures can't be salvaged. They need to be rebuilt entirely. But what you build afterward can be stronger, more authentic, and better able to withstand future storms. That evening, Barbara hosted a small gathering at her newly renovated motel courtyard. Julia had driven down from Atlanta, and several friends from Sunset Palms joined us. Even my neighbor Evelyn, who rarely socialized, came bearing her famous key lime pie. As sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, I looked around at these people who had become my chosen family. None of the relationships were perfect or without occasional friction, but they were built on genuine care and mutual respect, rather than financial dependency or obligation. My phone buzzed with a text from Audrey. Thinking of you today. I know it's a difficult anniversary. Love you, Mom. Simple, respectful, with no requests or manipulations. A small step perhaps, but in the right direction. Later, as the gathering wound down, Barbara and I sat alone in the courtyard's comfortable silence. You know what I was thinking about today? She asked. That night you showed up at my door during the hurricane, soaking wet and abandoned. I nodded, the memory still painful despite the passage of time. I never told you this, she continued, but I almost didn't answer the door. I was scared, alone, wondering if staying had been a mistake. She smiled wryly. Turns out, opening that door was one of the best decisions I ever made. For me too, I agreed, though I wouldn't have said so at the time. That's the thing about storms, Barbara mused. While you're in them, all you can think about is survival. It's only afterward you realize they can blow you toward exactly where you need to be. As I drove home to my peaceful condo that night, I reflected on the strange journey of the past year. The family I had tried so desperately to hold on to had revealed themselves in a moment of crisis. The security I had sought through maintaining harmony at any cost had proven illusory, and the devastation I had feared, being truly on my own, had instead become a path to authentic connection and purpose. Hurricane Eleanor had indeed hit my family's bank account, but the true impact had been on something far more valuable: the currency of truth, respect, and genuine care that forms the foundation of real relationships. Life after the storm wasn't perfect. Rebuilding never is. But with each day, I grew more confident in my ability to weather whatever came next. Not because I had perfect preparations, but because I had finally learned the difference between those who would leave me in a hurricane and those who would help me find shelter. Have you ever had to rebuild after a personal storm swept through your life? Sometimes the most devastating hurricanes aren't weather events but betrayals by those we trust most. I'd love to hear your stories of resilience and rebuilding in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to support more content about finding strength during life's unexpected storms. Remember, sometimes the darkest clouds bring the most important clarity. Thank you for joining me today, and may you find shelter in life's hurricanes, whether they're meteorological or emotional.